Clinical social worker, trauma expert, Shari Botwin is with me right now. Thank you so much for coming here in person. Good to see you.
It's good to see you too.
This is a tough case. We were talking before. I mean, I've said it before, I'll say it again. I cover a lot of cases. I think the ones that deal with children, young children, are the ones that are the toughest to talk about, the toughest to comprehend. When you heard about it, what did you think?
I think I was having some of the same thoughts. We hear about so many different stories, but whenever there's a case about a young child, she's so helpless. What is this mom thinking? It's a tragic story, and it's really very sad for so many people involved.
Yeah, and when you think about the resolution of this case, that she pled guilty and 33 years to life in prison, you don't have a trial here. From a trauma expert point of view, I feel that's a good thing, right? Because the family doesn't have to sit through this.
Well, and the family doesn't have to re-experience it. They don't have to keep reliving it and hearing the story over and over again. And I think it's also good for the defendant in a way, because who wants to sit there and listen to her talking about what she was thinking and why she did what she did? This doesn't sound like a woman who would have any reasonable explanation, because there's nothing reasonable about the story. So it does save people from some of the anguish that can come with a trial.
Because it's actually, I was talking about this recently, trials in and of themselves are very traumatic, but especially if there's a trial and it's appealed and it's overturned and then you have a retrial, this whole system can be very, very traumatic for a number of different reasons, because it's a long process. It's an arduous process. How did you counsel people who have to be sitting through these kinds of trials, especially when they're family members?
I have worked with people who are plaintiffs and they're in a trial trying to get justice. I talk to family members, and I can tell you, just even getting ready to go to trial, I see people, their PTSD gets worse, the depression gets worse. I can't tell you how many times clients have said to me, why am I doing this? Why should I put myself through this? It's long, it's arduous, it's painful. Sometimes people will say, going through the justice system and the months or years leading up to trial, some people will say to me, that part is harder, because when I went through the trauma, I survived, I shut down, I did whatever I could to stay alive. But when I go through this period of preparing, then I have to feel all this and remember all this over and over. So it can be really hard.
Totally off track. I was talking about some of this today. Different case, the Harvey Weinstein case. He's so sick. They're talking about, is it possible if he's retried, he won't even be in the courtroom? And I made the point that if you have these alleged survivors testifying, him not being in the courtroom would make it easier for them. So it's just think about the impact of trauma. But going back to this case, what do you say to the family members? Forget a trial or not. They're dealing with the loss of a family member. They're dealing now with the loss of a young child. What do you say to people in that position?
Sometimes the best thing to do is not to say anything. It's just to sit there and let them talk about whatever it is that's going on in their mind, because they're going to have such an array of thoughts and feelings. And if we sit there and we say things or we try to fix it, sometimes inadvertently we'll say things that may make them more upset. So if they say, what do I do to get through this? You say things like, you just keep doing what you're doing, and you keep talking and you keep letting people know how you feel. I feel like when it comes to loss, this kind of loss, the best thing we can do to support the family is just let them be in their feelings and let them say whatever they want. If they're falling apart in it, if they're starting to get depressed, if they're developing PTSD, as someone that cares for them, you would want them to go to a grief counselor or a trauma specialist, someone who really specializes in working with people who've had such tragic kinds of losses.
How long does it take? You'll never heal, right? You never heal. But how long does it take to somehow get to a place where you can move on in a way?
I think it's different for everybody. People are all unique in how they deal with grief. So there's not like a time. It's not like, well, maybe in 5 years or maybe in 10 years. This is what I say to people. When you get to the point where you can learn to actually live with whatever happened, when you get to the point where you can continue to forge ahead in your life, have relationships, do the things that make you happy, you're in a place of healing, you're thriving, because you're now learning to integrate the loss and the tragedy and you use it in a way to become stronger. You know, a lot of times what I see with people when they go through such horrible crimes, they become advocates for other family members who have lost somebody in a similar way. I see that with all the time with guns and school shootings. Parents are getting involved and they're trying to help. So the parents from Michigan are trying to help the parents in Georgia.
Right. Yeah.
That's how you get through it. And it really will be with someone for the rest